Hi, this is Craig Haskell with the Value Hunt Academy. You're listening to another exclusive interview with a leading authority in the syndication of value-add real estate. Now, guys, this may or may not resonate with you, but unfortunately, there's many real estate professionals looking to break into the syndication game and get their first deal done, but you know what? They can't seem to pull the trigger. No, they can't pull the trigger. Come on. Well, I've got a real treat for you because in this interview today, we're going to be speaking with one of my students. We're going to be speaking with Karma Senge, founder of Karma Investment Properties, who's made that upward trend, that upward transition from single-family housing investing to actually syndicating his first multifamily deal. And I say, yay. So let me ask you, have you ever worried about not having the needed investor funds to close a deal on time? Have you? Well, we're actually going to be speaking with Karma, and he's going to walk us through those tough obstacles that he had to overcome from investors to get his deal funded and to get it closed. And you're going to find there's some real critical lessons that he learned during his stressful process that he's going to share with us. So it's pretty cool. So in this interview with Karma, you're going to learn how he got over the hurdle to raise $1.9 million to close his first syndication, how he found the deals, the purchase term details, and how one deal actually turned into buying a portfolio of apartments, the process he used to raise the money, the big turning point that attracted investors, how his first deal turned out a seven-figure payday, and the big lessons he learned through the process of raising money. So this interview is going to open your eyes to the critical elements that you need to raise money for your syndications. And if you're raising money, you got to listen to this interview. All right, Karma, thanks for getting on the line with us. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to talk to you about the syndication business. And there's a lot of folks on the Value Hunt Academy that want to get into the syndication business, haven't done the first syndication, and you have. And you've seen some of the ups and some of the downs. And I really want to share your story of your first syndication. But first, I'd like to kind of give a little bit of background on yourself. I want to set the table. And so if you could kind of tell us about your experience in real estate. Where did you start and kind of where you are right now?
Sure. I started back in 2001 in Birmingham, Alabama. Before that, I was working as a carpet cleaning person. I was, cleaning carpets, installing carpets, things like that. And I had a medical condition which caused me not to be able to work. So I had to find something outside of, your standard job to do to make a living. And one of my great friends led me on to real estate. And I started doing real estate back then, and I was doing single-family homes between 2001 and 2007. And between that time, I had done more than 350 transactions around the Birmingham area. I had a few different deals outside of there, a couple in Texas, a couple different places, but it was primarily the Birmingham, Alabama market. And the problem that I had, the reason I actually got out in 2007 is because I was literally trying to do everything myself. I was doing all my marketing. I was negotiating with the sellers. I was pre-screening tenants and dealing with tenant issues, property management. So I was literally doing everything. And I remember one day I was in a bookstore stressing over a problem that I had with a $1 million property. My tenants had left, and for some reason, which I can't even remember now, prior to me finding out that the tenants had left, I had to spend quite a bit of money, which means I didn't have the money to pay this $1 million property's mortgage. So I was stressing about it, trying to think of what I was doing, what I was going to do, and I'm walking around a bookstore, and all of a sudden my chest, feels like it's caving in, and I collapse to the floor. And, the store calls 911 and rushes me to the hospital, thinking that I had a heart attack. Got to the hospital, the doctor, looked me up and down, and told me that it wasn't a heart attack, that it was an anxiety attack. And she was like, I remember to this day, she's like, I don't know what you do, but you need to take a vacation. So my ex-wife, my wife at the time, and I took a month's vacation to England. And while I was there, I was, deciding what I want to do. Do I want to hire people to continue on, or do I just want to get rid of the properties? And I decided to just get out of the game. So within about 18 months after that, I finally got rid of all my properties. I was selling it to either my tenants or some of them, I lost out on and gave them back to the sellers that I had originally gotten the properties from. And loads I got rid of to other investors. And since then, I decided I'm never going to do it again, and I'm going to go on a separate path. And I also do self-defense, and I've, since then I've opened up a couple of self-defense schools and gone around different countries teaching self-defense to law enforcement, military, and government agencies. And for a couple of years, I was living in Belize, which is, for those that don't know where Belize is, it's in Central America, kind of sandwiched between Mexico and Guatemala. And we moved there. I was teaching the police and military for a couple of years, and then after my contract was up, we moved back to the States, specifically to Florida. And I had the intention of opening up another self-defense school when I moved back, but it didn't work out that way, and I didn't really know what I was going to do at the time. But I had read an article. It was by a man named Ken McElroy, and it talked about apartments. And I just started thinking, well, maybe I should get back into real estate. It's the only thing that, other than teaching self-defense, it's really the only thing I really know how to do, to make any type of money. So I got back into it. When I got back, just decided to go into, a different way versus the single family.
And so that's kind of why you got into doing multifamily, and that was your first syndication, right? Was multifamily?
It was. I decided to go multifamily simply. There's a lot of different commercial asset classes. You got industrial and retail, but for me, it was much more of a connection in multifamily because it's somewhat similar to single family residential. People need a place to live, plain and simple. They always will. So for me, it just connected with me more than all the other asset classes.
Yeah, so it makes sense. That's a typical transition from a lot of people that are doing houses. As you got started, let me ask you, what were some of the fears, some of the challenges that you had when you actually got started doing your first syndication?
I think the question is more like what fears I didn't have. I was afraid of everything when I first started. Some of my fears, did I know enough to get started? Some of my fears, I specifically had a fear of marketing right at first, because if I were to put out marketing, someone might call back, and then what? So, those are some of my fears. Could I negotiate with the seller, so that it was beneficial to both parties, not just myself and not just them? Would someone even work a deal with me? Being new in the commercial, realm, it was eating at me that I'm never going to get a deal because I'm brand new. No one's going to want to do a deal with me. I'm not going to be able to find any type of funding for it. Not going to be able to raise a dime. And all these years, and I remember there was a couple of nights where I was literally like up all night, just going out of my mind, thinking to myself, is this, what I should be doing? Because I'm never going to be able to do it, And so those are, quite a lot of, I mean, I had more fears than that. Those are just the ones that come to my head, but it was, one fear after another.
So, I mean, I think that's kind of natural, but ultimately you overcame them. So how did you overcome them?
Well, over my entire life, I've always tried to do anything it took to overcome my fears. So, my fear of marketing, towards sellers, the biggest fear was someone was going to call back and want me to do something with them. So, I mean, the only thing that I knew what to do was go out and market. And I left my wife in charge with that because I knew that if I was going to do it, it probably may not get done. So, I asked my wife, and my wife knows about all the fears that I was dealing with, and she was okay with it. So she's, put out our marketing pieces, our direct mail. It took me ages to actually get enough nerve to talk to brokers, and it was honestly a push of a friend, my friend Steve. And I remember one day we were talking, and I was supposed to go see I think it was a Marcus Millichap broker, and I just kept putting it off. And one day he said, tomorrow when we have our meeting, and this was a big local RIA meeting that we were going to be at the following day. It's like, if you don't go see the broker before our meeting, I'm going to make an example out of you. And it wouldn't be a good thing. Yeah. So that day, the day of the meeting, I probably wasted, 2 hours around my house just trying to build up the nerve. I have to go meet this guy. And I finally went to the office and met him. And when I walked in, I looked at him and I was like, I know this guy from somewhere. I couldn't put my finger on it, and I could tell that he had the same reaction with me. And it turns out he was actually one of my old self-defense students. And we got to talking, and the second that I built up that nerve to go talk to him and actually go meet him and realize, hey, this isn't so bad, that, got me over the fear of at least talking with brokers. But I still had an issue, dealing with sellers because, someone was about to call back. My marketing campaign just started and someone's going to call. And I tell you, don't want to lie, the first 2 or 3 times my phone rang, I did not answer the phone. Yeah, but I finally, one day, I picked up the phone. I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this business, I have to treat it like a business. And the next phone call came in, and I answered it. And from that point on, I just continued to answer. I realized once I started to talk to the people, it's not so bad. We constantly have these fears, and we make up these stories in our head that they're much worse than they, are ever going to be. So, I started to answer the phone, and it just kind of went from there.
All right, well, good. This is a nice transition because you did get a phone call from a property owner, and it happened to be your first syndication. So I want you to kind of tell us about that first deal, that first opportunity with this property owner, and how it actually turned into multiple deals.
Okay. Well, from our direct marketing, a gentleman had called me up, and when he called me up, I was actually really surprised that he had a property in this location because I don't exactly know why my wife marketed to this particular area, because if you know anything about Florida, you'll know that this particular area, Ocala, is horse country. I didn't even know that there were apartments in that, area. So when he called me, I was actually very surprised. And he was talking to me about a 33-unit property that he had, and with the simple spreadsheet that I had, I ran some numbers. I checked out the area a little bit, just did a little bit of market research. And for me, the property actually didn't work as far as numbers go. And I told the gentleman this, and a couple days went by, and he called me back, and he drops the price $90,000. And I mean, I was floored. Literally, mouth, opened up, jaw dropped, and went back into my spreadsheet and realized that the numbers were working. So I decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and make him an offer, and I made him an offer. And when I did that, he said, well, let me tell you about another property that I have. And this property was 58 units. And the numbers on that worked right off the bat. It was a great deal for what he wanted to, so I put an offer for that. And then he said, well, let me tell you, I have 4 more. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, when is this going to end? And, talking about fear, at that point, when he told me that he had 4 more, a total of 6 properties so far, I started to get a fear of, oh my God, he's going to just keep giving me properties and I'm not going to know what to do with them all. Am I going to be able to raise the money for it? I didn't know. So once again, fear starts stepping in, but I quickly got out of it and I put an offer back and forth. We went for a couple of weeks and we decided to go ahead and move forward, and we actually ended up purchasing all 6 properties. He had a 7th property. It was a triple net CVS, but he didn't want to get rid of it. He's an elderly gentleman and just wanted to retain it, which is fine. But we ended up actually taking all 6 apartments from him.
So all 6 apartments, what was the total units?
The total units, 318 units.
318 units on your first deal. That's big, man. That's big. And so what were the contract terms? I mean, like the purchase price. How long did you have for due diligence? How long was the closing? Anything else that you might want to share?
Okay. Well, the purchase price on all 318 units was $3.6 million, which, if you do the numbers, comes out to just under $12,000 a door. And, definitely around Florida, that's unheard of. Usually going for 30, 40 and up. So, I knew at that point that I couldn't turn it down. We had 30 days due diligence, and my partner at the time, who I'm actually no longer with, took care of most of that. Most of the due diligence. And he also helped me raise the money. He raised a little bit more than half. And
how many days of closing? How many days did they give you to close after due diligence?
We had 45 days to close, but we also had 2 extensions in there as well, which we thought we were actually going to need to use. We had to raise a total of $1.9 million for the project, and we didn't think we were going to get it done. We were weeks to closing, and we still were $800,000 short, and had no idea where it was going to come from. And one day, I'm panicking, literally panicking, and I call my attorney and ask him if he knew some people that would mind investing with us, investing in the deal. And he gave me a list of probably 12, 13 people, and I started to make my phone calls. And I went down the list, and I didn't get to the second person. I had just hung up with the first person, started dialing the second one, and I get a call. It's my attorney. And he said, stop. Don't call another single person. I will give you the rest. So we actually ended up getting the remainder, $800,000, a little bit more than $800,000 from our own attorneys.
Now, did you have some of these investors, at least the first half, did you have some of these investors already kind of lined up, ready to go?
Prior to finding the deal, absolutely not.
You did not.
The way that I was doing it prior, which I know is not necessarily the best way now. The way that I was doing it before was, find the property and the whole idea of the money will come. Now I look at that and it's like that doesn't work. I firmly believe, find the money first, and then, find your deal. And it wasn't until, I'm going to say, a week after we got the contract on the property. We had just gone through the financial due diligence side of it before we ever started to try and find anybody to fund the deal. And it was my partner that was doing most of it. He was going out, he was talking with people that he knew, meeting new people, trying to raise as much money as possible. I was as well to a point, but I wasn't having as much success as he was. I was still getting used to talking with people. I'm not the best communicator, and I had fears of talking with people. I didn't think anybody was going to give me any type of money, to fund this deal. And we had created a very, very, rudimentary pitch book, and just talked about, we're going to take this apartment, we're going to fix it up, and we're going to hold it for 5 to 7 years. Nothing very specific. I didn't have, a quote-unquote investment strategy. But when we first started to try and raise money, it was actually quite hard to get money from individuals because we didn't have, anything really detailed and outlined, like this is exactly what we're doing. But we did manage to get some money. But it was hard. It was very tough at first until we kind of narrowed down, our investment strategy and what we're really going to do with this property.
So let's talk about that. I mean, you were at that point where you didn't think you were going to get all the money, and things kind of changed. I mean, what was kind of the big turning point? You talked about all of a sudden your attorney called you, but what was the big turning point, the hurdle you got over to finally raising the balance of the money?
Honestly, meeting you, Craig. Meeting you and Nikki and learning from you guys. One of the best things that I learned from you all is focus. Really focus on one thing, do it and do it well. And we worked out our investment strategy, and I think because just the sheer fact that I had an investment strategy and I started to become really familiar with what, I'm really attempting to do, it made a world of difference as far as investors went. And even brokers and property management companies that I talked to, once I had an investment strategy, they really listened. They really got excited about what we were doing. And I think that made, just a huge, huge difference. People went from, let me think about, investing in your property to, here, take my money. I mean, it was a big difference.
Well, that's awesome, man. I know it projected you forward, and you got your deal closed. And so tell us, you got the deal closed. How are things working out so far with your deal?
Well, I mean, the deal was going really, really well. We actually ended up selling the property, all of them, to someone that I know. I actually contacted this person to try and help build my own team of contractors and subs to do my repositioning, at the best prices, give me some advice. And it ended up turning out he wanted to purchase my properties, and he made, an offer that I couldn't turn down. So we ended up selling it toward the end of the year.
So what'd you sell it for?
We sold it for $6 million.
$6 million. Wow, great job, buddy. So that's it's $2.4 million that you made?
Correct.
For your partnership. In what period of time?
I believe it was 4.5 to 5 months total.
4.5 to 5 months. Man, that's a home run all the way around the bases. Thank you very much. I just think that's awesome. And I think during the process, what helped you was that you had a great deal. And I always tell people you got to have a great deal. It's the number one thing you got to have when you bring investors a deal. But that got you part of the way, because you're trying to raise $1.9 million. That's a lot of money. So, but once you put together your investment strategy and you had a business plan to go to investors, they got excited and they jumped on board, and you raised the balance of your money, and you got your deal done. You made a lot of money, and now your investors are beating you up for more deals, right?
Oh, every day I get calls from investors, and even some people I've never spoken with that are friends of my investors have been calling me, asking me when the next deal's coming up, and I've got my pipeline filled out. I'm working on a lot of different things, but yeah, it's a day-to-day thing. Actually, this morning at 9 a.m. I had a meeting with an investor of mine at Panera Bread. Panera does so much business with us, and this morning, he took me out to breakfast, and he was asking me when the next project is coming up because he wants to put in more money with us. So it's like this on a day-to-day basis.
Well, that's awesome. So it's a nice ending to your first syndication, and looking back over that process, I wonder if you could share some lessons that you might have learned during the money raising process that can help some of our listeners.
I think some of the lessons I learned was, one, don't chase rabbits. I learned that from you, Craig, and it's really helped in focusing every little aspect of my business. And investors can really see that. They can tell if you're scattered all over the place and looking for anything that, is a slightly good deal, or they can tell if you're extremely focused and knowledgeable what you do. And because I was able to stop chasing rabbits and really focus and define my investment strategy, I became so crystal clear as to what I was looking for in a property, as to what I was going to do with the property, that it made the investors much more likely to fund those deals because they felt comfortable that I knew what I was doing, that I was going to protect their money and grow their money, as best as I could. So it made them very comfortable. So I would say definitely, focus on one thing, do it, and do it well. Yeah, I would say the next, a piece of advice is take action. I know so many people, even some people that are very close to me, family members, that they want to learn and they just keep learning, but they never end up actually doing anything. And, it's great to learn. You definitely need to learn. But, knowledge without action, it doesn't work. So you definitely need to go out there. You need to start talking with brokers. You need to start talking with investors and really try and do this business. And it is a business. It needs to be run like a business. It's not, at least in my opinion, it shouldn't just be a hobby. You need to treat it like a business. And, that requires taking action. So, that would be my second bit of advice.
Well, that's perfect. I appreciate that, and it's well founded, and it makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot of stuff I talk about, and there's a lot of new syndicators. There's a lot of guys like you talked about who are just trying to get this education, never get in the game, and they're just waiting for the perfect opportunity, right? Like to have a baby, right? You're married, you want to have a baby, you wait for that perfect opportunity. Well, a lot of times there's not that perfect opportunity in life to do anything. So for the guys that are on the sideline that want to get in the game, that want to start their syndication, and you went through that hurdle, what advice would you give them?
Just do it.
Just do it, baby.
Yeah, just do it, baby. It's what you got to do. Just take that giant leap and go for it.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about taking action is probably the biggest thing that a lot of people don't do. I mean, you can have the greatest plan in the world, and if you don't take action, you're not going to succeed. You could have an okay plan, and if you take action, you're going to succeed. So the main underlying factor is you got to take action. You got to put your efforts into what you're doing. If you're passionate about what you're doing and you have some experience, I mean, see a lot of talent sitting on the benches that aren't out in the game playing it, and so they need to get out there and take action, and they'd be surprised at success. I hope you enjoyed this interview. For more information on Karma, please visit his website at www.karmainvestmentproperties.com. That's KRMA investmentproperties.com, or email him at karma@karmainvestmentproperties.com. And if you want more training on syndication, then I encourage you to dig deep into all the valuable resources we have at the Value Hunt Academy. It's a site for free syndication training of value-add real estate. And then finally, if you're at a point in your real estate career where you're ready to take action, you're ready to step into change and start building your own wealth through syndication and want help, then let's jump on the phone and talk. All you got to do is contact Nikki, and you can reach her by email at nikki@valuehoundacademy.com. That's NIKKI @valuehoundacademy.com. And when you get a hold of her, you're going to ask to schedule a call. All right? So for any other questions, comments, or ideas, please email me at craig@valuehoundacademy.com.